Hi guys, I'm Julie, the overlander next door. Come and join me as I go over pros and cons of living full-time in a rooftop tent. All right, so now let's talk about full-time living in a rooftop tent and the pros and cons. We'll get started with pros and cons for weather. So pros and cons for weather in a rooftop tent full-time. The rain sucks.
I was just thinking like soft shell tent.
Yeah.
Nope, not an option.
Because if you're moving a lot on the road and you have to pack it up, you're going to be packing up your tent wet, and that wetness is going to get in your bedding. No matter how hard you try not to get wet inside that bedding area, if it's raining and you're packing it up while it's raining, your bed is still going to get wet. Another thing that kind of sucks with rain is cold weather and rain. You do get condensation, and everyone knows this. Even in the winter time, you get condensation inside of your tent.
That is all nice.
And that can be cumbersome when you have to close it up. And this is if you're closing it up every single day. You know, sometimes I like to stay in a spot for at least a couple days up to a week. When you do that, it's nice because a lot of times you'll have the weather clear up. Like right now, it's gorgeous, beautiful sunshine. So a pro and a con to sunshine is pro, the sunshine will dry out your tent. Con, it gets really hot inside the rooftop tents. At least from my experience from the rooftop tents that I've slept in, no matter what tent it was, it got blazing hot inside when the sun was actually beating down on it. Now, again, that's a pro because it will dry it out, but it's also a con because you're like, oh, get me out of this tent. I can't. One thing you can do is fans. Fans will always help you in that situation. Another thing you can do is drink lots of water, unzip your windows a little bit, let some air flow in. A con to sleeping in a rooftop tent is you do have to get out of it. So in a rooftop tent, you're not going to really be cooking inside of it. You know, you're not going to want to use the restroom inside of it. You know, you might hang out inside of it, do some editing or watch some TV on your tablet, Netflix, whatever you have, but you are eventually gonna have to get out of that rooftop tent. Now, the pro to that is that you're gonna spend more time outside. With a camper, you tend to stay in that camper more because you have that security and that little space that you can stay in. The rooftop tent kind of forces you to go outside and enjoy Mother Nature more. So that's also a pro and also a con. A pro to sleeping in a rooftop tent is you are off of the ground. So that's a great thing for when it is rainy because you're not going to be in the mud. You're not going to be in the wet, uneven, dirty, gross ground. You know, you're going to be up higher. A con to that is you do still have to level your rig. Sometimes it's hard to level your rig if you don't have something around to level, like rocks or logs. Now, if you carry levelers with you, perfect. But even sometimes the ground is so unlevel, you can't get that tent level. Me, for one, I don't care very much. As long as I'm somewhat level, I'm fine. I've actually never leveled my rig with rocks or stumps. I just kind of drove it until I was like, that's good enough. Let's sleep in it. I know a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people like their rig super level. I'm not one of those people. Another pro of living full-time in a rooftop tent is I am up higher, so I am away from more of the creepy crawly critters like snakes and spiders can kind of crawl up. I prefer you not to be here, buddy. You're a little scary. But like the bigger animals too, you know, I'm not as afraid of like a bear or cougar or wolves or whatever you want to say. I feel safer and more secure up inside of my rooftop tent. Now, a con to that is it still is a rooftop tent. It still is canvas. If something wanted to get in here, it would get in here. It is a canvas. You can easily cut this or, with an animal's case, claw it open. So it is both a pro to be up high, but a con at the same time because it's not as secure as a camper would be with the hard walls. Another pro of a rooftop tent is the views. You do get to have a higher look up on the views area. So like if you're in a camper, you're going to be lower to the ground. You're not going to get that kind of bird eye view, and it kind of like feels like you're in like a little tree house almost, you know, like up in the trees. You get to see this gorgeous view. You're higher than everyone else. You can look down on everyone. You know, it's pretty, well, sorry. It's pretty nice to be up inside of a rooftop tent. Now, a con to having a rooftop tent is, well, it's on your rooftop. And especially if you have a hard shell, it takes up pretty much your entire roof rack. So you do lose that usable space on the roof rack. Now, some of the rooftop tents have a little space that you can put some stuff on top of them, but I would never really want to do that. Now, mine has solar panels, which is awesome because I can set it up at an angle and the sun will beat down on those solar panels better. Whereas if they were just on the roof rack, they would just be flat, unless I designed like a lift up situation. But again, it's so much easier on a rooftop tent because you're popping your tent up, those solar panels are going to be popped up, and that's it. Now, yeah, it would be nice to have a little bit more storage on my roof rack, but I think between having a rooftop tent and having a full roof rack, the rooftop tent's nicer because I don't have to climb on top of a roof rack to get stuff off. Most of my stuff is inside of the tent, or inside of the rig. Now, the only downside to that too is most rooftop tents are a little bit heavy, so they're top heavy. Although I could see if you have a lot of gear on your roof, that would be just as heavy. So both pro and a con to having a rooftop tent on your roof. Another pro to having a rooftop tent is, well, come on, it looks pretty cool, right? I would say it looks very cool to have a rooftop tent. But that's just my opinion. I might be the overlander next door, so you know, I'm the overlander next door. Now, this kind of goes back to the weather pro and the weather con. A con to having a rooftop tent full-time is, again, the weather and the pack up. So if you had a camper, your pack up is going to be pretty quickly in a bad rainy situation, whereas the rooftop tent, you do have to pack it up in the wet and the rain, and you do get wet and rained on from doing that. So that is a bit of a con to a rooftop tent, especially full-time. A lot of people don't have to worry too much about that because they're not full-time, or they're not experiencing as much of what a full-timer would experience with as weather. You know, I've had this tent freeze. The walls have totally frozen on me.
Hey guys, it's frozen so hard to the wall, I can't even get it off. Let's try. Ready?
Wow.
Oh my god, I can't even get it off the wall.
That's off the wall.
I've had it in the summertime where it just beats down on you and you get hotter in the tent than you do outside, you know, and I've had just continuous rain sometimes where it's just like, I don't even want to get out of the tent. It's raining so much. But at the same time, it's a fun experience, you know, and I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. You know, it's something I got to see and enjoy and struggle with, and it's just been a blast living full-time in a rooftop tent. If anyone is curious about living full-time in a rooftop tent and I haven't covered it on this video yet, comment down below. I want to hear all of your thoughts on this. You know, I want to answer as many questions as I can. So again, comment down below any questions or concerns you have, and I will be glad to answer them. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Have fun.
This is why I love my life.
And that's where she'll go.